afternoon, everyone, and welcome to session 4 of day 2 of Google Camp. My name is Grecia, and I will be your moderator tech for this session. I'm here to provide spiritual support for both you and the presenter during the presentation. Should you have any questions or need assistance with the Zoom interface, you can use the chat icon on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen, search for moderator, and send a direct message to me. I will do my best to provide assistance to resolve your concerns. And today's session is a roadmap to digital portfolios notebooks, and here are your presenters.
Thank you. Hi, guys. My name's Tina Brown. I'll be kind of going through the different slides with you. And I have Ashley along with me. There she is. So she's going to kind of be my eyes in the chat as well. I'm working with one screen here. I apologize. The one thing I said I would never do. So please feel free to ask questions in the chat throughout. Anything that you're unclear of, you want to see again, please let us know. We're going to take you through kind of the ins and outs, the do's and the perhaps the do nots as far as how to make a digital portfolio with your students that are really kind of encompassed throughout the school year. So we'll go ahead and get started with how about putting in the chat the grade and subject that you teach. Will you go ahead and throw that in the chat and actually kind of let us know who we have in our session today?
All right, yeah, and while they're throwing that in there, you guys should be jealous because Tina is coming to us today from Hawaii on her family vacation.
Yeah.
So this is true dedication right here, presenting from Hawaii, different time zones and everything. But yeah, so in the chat, we have all subjects, 9, 12, K-12, third grade, SPED, independent study, TK through 12. Wow, that's a wide range. K-12, 11th grade US history, 7th grade ELA and social studies, TK third, SPED, TK through 12 IS, TK 12 special ed assessment, 6th grade DLI, 4th independent study. Oh my gosh, we just have like a wide range. TK through 12, a lot of TK through 12. I'm not understanding. Is this like a support position, or are you teaching every grade TK through 12? Because that's a lot right there. A lot of homeschool support. 5th grade science virtual, all subjects, phys ed, middle school 5th K through 12. Wow. Okay, so wide range, definitely a wide range of learners in the room today.
I love it. We got a little bit of everything. So hopefully we can provide something for you that everyone can kind of take with them and kind of adapt and adjust and really cultivate something for your clientele. But like we said, as we go through this, please ask questions in the chat. We'll go through it and hopefully clarify things so you have a good roadmap for your school year and kind of seeing if this is something you can implement. So here we go. So essentially what today we're going to do is the goal is to kind of take a drive to the path of empowering students to use Google Sites. So that's what we're going to focus on, to create and utilize this digital portfolios for curation and organization. So we first want to make sure, like, what is a digital portfolio? So essentially it's a collection of electronic evidence of student learning assembled and managed by the student themselves over the course of the school year. So it's really managed by students. You might hear it as e-notebooks, you might hear it as e-binders, but essentially it's a collection of the student work throughout the school year. So at the end of the school year, they have this display of this evidence of all of their learning from the school year. So I'm curious, based on just our little definition here, how about like on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being expert status, what do we have in our session today as far as experience with e-notebooks or digital portfolios? 1 being you don't know, but you're here and you're excited. 5 being you're feeling pretty good about it. You've done it. What are we feeling?
So we have an 8.
I love it. I'll take it.
That person really must know what they're doing. Okay, so they can probably teach us a thing or two. So we got 1s and 2s and 4s and some 3s, a lot more 1s, a couple more 3s, some 1s, a 4, a 3, some 2s, 4, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3. So a kind of a wide range, but I'm seeing lots of 1s and 2s. Always open to new ideas and new ways of doing things. That was from the 8. Thank you, Miss Charlotte. So I learned something new in the last session about Google Slides, and I thought I knew like everything Google Slides. Oh no, I just learned something new. So we can always walk away with something. If you're a 4 or a 5 and you think you know this pretty well and you want to hop out into another session, like we totally get it, because this is with Google Sites. If you think you might already know, we won't be offended if you have to hop out, but we'd love it if you say you might learn something new.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. And if you would choose to say, please feel free, like we said, maybe you'll learn something. And if you have anything to add or any comments or quick tips or troubleshooting that you went through, like please throw it in the chat. Let's share and learn from one another. And then if you're more on the ones and twos, like please feel free to ask questions. We want to make sure that we keep it as clear as possible for all of us. All right, so let's jump in here. So the first thing I wanted to do is just show some examples. So I'll have Ashley throw some in the chat. I'll also display a few up on the screen, but I just wanted to show you kind of like what it is we're talking about. What could it possibly look like utilizing specifically Google Sites? So I'm going to show a couple. I'll start with English. These are the ones that I've actually done with my students. So this is from one of the classes that I've had. So you'll notice how I set it up, and you can do this however you want. This is just an example. You'll see on the left my menu bar. All my students, they had a home page. It had they did an all about me session, had a picture, a symbol of themselves. For the home page, there's the class website, the agenda, the textbooks, they have access. They knew what we were doing the entire school year as far as the different units. I provided them with, and we'll show this to you as well, some of the different materials they'll be needing for the whole school year. So every student will have an e-notebook like this, and they'll have the different just resources they have. So for example, I've done an interactive notebook like on paper, like a spiral. So this was kind of that transition as well. So they still had these resources with them. So if we needed anything to do with like revising notes or coming up with questions, they knew they could always go to their e-notebook to find all these different resources. So they still had these with them. And then for each unit, I'll show unit 1 here. They still had, they had their title, the grading period. They always had access to their class agenda and their textbook. We came up with essential questions, and then we had the organization of like a cover sheet or a one-pager essentially. So the unit overview, the different skills we learned in that unit, and students will have to answer questions, kind of revisiting their learning. So it's really just a display of everything that they went from that entire unit. So they had opportunity first to complete that assignment, and we worked with Google Classroom, and then they put it here on this display. So kind of just see how, and all the units are set up a similar way. Let me show you a social studies one. And just to note, these different examples that I'm showing you, they all came from the same school. So it's different teachers teaching these content areas. So this is a different teacher that taught world history, but we've been collaborating with each other to make sure that you'll notice that we all have like the same notebook materials, the units are organized the same, just to kind of keep that same language for our students. Not to say that you have to, it might be a good way to kind of collaborate across content area or just within your own content area to have that opportunity. So just a couple of things, that's our social studies. So there's definitely ways to do it depending on your content area. I also wanted to show the science. If you are not Hemet Unified, you may not be able to see these on your own. So I wanted to show them just because setting wise, the science department wanted to keep the settings specifically for their district, which we'll talk about. But just so you can kind of see how it's done with science. So they kind of took a little bit of a different route, but they still kept organized in terms of like what it is that they were doing for each specific unit. Okay, so that's kind of just an idea as far as what it is we're talking about, what it looks like end of year, and keeping in mind like this is over the course of an entire school year. So it may be a little bare bones at the very beginning, but the end result is pretty impressive and the kids get a kick out of it. All right, so there's some examples of what it is we're going towards.
Yes, and just to reiterate some of the comments that are coming in the chat, we are going to be giving you these slides at the end, so you'll have access to all of these links later. But we're going to be clicking out of the slide deck and going into Google Sites, and that stuff is not exactly in the slide deck. So we wanted you to kind of follow along with us, and then we'll give you the slides at the end to go back to and reference later. But I will be popping in all these various links that she's talking about. I'll be popping them into the chat as she's going through them.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, I know it can get a little, it's a lot. It is, because it is a year-long kind of project concept. So we'll definitely give you everything at the end, but as we go through these slides, we'll pop them in the chat throughout so we can kind of stay on the same track. So The first question we typically get is like, do we as teachers create a template, or do we have students create the bare bones? So if you notice from the examples that we just saw, they all follow the same kind of formatting, and that's totally up to you how you do it. The first year that I attempted it, I did it with middle schoolers, and it's totally up to your clientele. But for my middle schoolers, I created a template. So me as a teacher, I created what I wanted it to look like so that students could kind of follow along with me and kind of do in that plug and play kind of concept. Now, if you're with the high schools, or if you have students who you feel like can kind of handle that or more tech savvy, you can absolutely create kind of a checklist as far as what you want in your Google site. It's totally up to you. So first, I'll show you what a template looks like, and then we'll kind of explore Google Sites. So I want to show you first kind of what it looks like. So here's kind of the editing version of what a template could look like. So this is something that I made, and then I pushed it out to students, and we'll go over how to do that as well. But if you'll notice, I created kind of the bare bones of it. So when they got their template or their copy, they knew to change the certain information, these little content blocks. So they're going to add in the information. So you'll notice that I kind of set up the e-notebook materials for them, so they didn't have to go and find them. I wanted to make sure that they had access to those throughout the school year. So I had it organized from them. I created these different, they're called pages. So for each unit, totally up to you. Like I said, if you want to have the students kind of explore and create their own, totally welcome to. This was one of my like beginning stages. So I had my, controlling hat on. So I wanted to make sure my students had everything in order and organized. So I created the bare bones for them. So you'll see that there's placements for them to add in their information. I also have the questions listed here. So the students not only had to input the document that they worked on, but they also had to go back and kind of revisit their learning and answer the questions throughout. So I did create this template, but they went in and kind of customized it and made their own. Okay, so that's just an example of a template. So we will show you kind of how to share that out, but just kind of to see the behind the scenes of you as a teacher can make the template for them and push it out to them. Okay, so let's take a little tour on Google Sites. So Google Sites is one of the platforms already in here. It's completely free. You can access it through, we call it here the waffle. You can always access it here, and you're going to look for that icon there that says Sites, and it'll take you here. It does give you some templates to work with, so totally up to you. You want to create from the very bare bones, you're totally welcome to. I'm just going to click on a blank. I'm going to start from scratch just so you can kind of see the different features that it has. And because it is a part of Google, it talks with all of your Google components. So Google Docs, Google Slides, all those different things. So it's a pretty easy transition. And even if you don't have, like when I tell my students, if they put in their document and maybe they're not quite done yet with the document, because it's all Google, they talk to each other. So if they update and they finish their assignment and turn it on Google Classroom, it'll update on the Google site as well. So you can still like plug it in as their placeholder, even if they're not done with it yet. So they all talk to each other. Okay, so here's like your bare bones of it. If at any point, like you want to start it out too, I always suggest this 3 dots here. You can actually take a tour. So Google will take you through kind of a mini tour of Google Sites. It'll kind of point out the different components of it. So please feel free to take the Google tour as well. But I'll take you through these 3 components here on the right side. I'm going to start at the very right where it says themes. So you can start with something that Google has already created. You'll notice here on the right, there's a couple different ones already set for you, so you don't feel like you're starting completely from scratch. So you can adjust however you'd like. You want to change it, you can change the font, you can change the color, really make it your own. And like I said, if you want to have students have this control, totally up to you, or you can make the template and then they can also customize it too. So I have some students change like the pictures and the backgrounds, totally up to you. You can change what the header looks like. You can change the picture of the background too. You can choose your own picture, so students can really kind of customize it to make it for them. Or if you have a certain topic that you're going over for that unit, you can change the picture. You can upload a picture, you can look for a picture online, totally up to you. So that's for the themes, just kind of the basic overview as far as what it looks like. You can also insert GIFs. I was messing with that last night. So you can insert a GIF if you have it, which can be slightly distracting. I'm not gonna lie, but it was fun to play with. And then the pages component is kind of like your table of contents as far as the different like pages in your entire website. So you notice that you start off with only one page, which is your home page. There at the bottom is a plus sign to add a page. So this is where I would put my different units. So it'll automatically add a page. You'll see it there on the right, and then you'll also see it here at the top. So you can change this to show on the far left side as well. So we have the settings here. So you can change the navigation to either be on the top. You can put it on the side if you want. So you'll notice here it changes to the side. It's totally up to you how you want to kind of make it your own. So once you have your units, it'll always show up for them to kind of choose however you want to title it there. Okay. And then the insert, this is kind of where the fun, the creation happens here. So you can do one by one and like add in a picture, add in a text box, or you can do what's called content blocks. So it'll automatically plug in these different visuals for you. So I'll go ahead and click on this one, and you'll see it'll automatically add like a placeholder, this plus sign. You can add in something from your computer, you can add in a picture, you can go from your drive. So typically for like my students, if they're plugging in an assignment, they're going to click on from drive and they're going to search their assignment. So I'll go ahead and click on it here, and you'll see that shows up on the right, and they can search their drive, they're shared with. So they'll click on the magnifying glass, they can search for their assignment, and then they can automatically insert it into their document. Okay, they can have a title for it, they can answer questions, so it'll display there for you. Okay, and then another component I wanted to show was this preview button. So you can at any time see what it's going to look like when you send it to others or when others see it. And then you can see what it looks like on a computer, you can see what it looks like on a tablet, and you can see what it looks like on a phone. So depending on what your clientele is, like if you have maybe high schoolers who are working on their phones, you can always kind of see what it is that they're going to see if they're utilizing that. Okay, so just a brief glimpse into Google Sites, So we'll kind of dive in a little bit more, but just know that while you're working this like draft mode, it does technically save automatically, just like Google Docs or anything like that. But we'll talk a little bit in the next couple slides about publishing, and just know that saving on your draft is not the same as save to your published version or what the public sees. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, but that's kind of the quick and dirty version of Google Sites. Like I said, there's plenty to learn with it. I would definitely take that tour with Google, but it's pretty intuitive. If you're familiar with like Google Docs or Google Sites, there's definitely a lot of things that you can play with it. All right.
Dawn was asking about the content size limit for the page or for the site. And as far as I'm aware, I don't think there is a limit, especially if you have like Google for Education account partnerships with your district. I've never run into that, and I've built several Google sites with lots of content on them. So I have not run into that. Tina, do you know?
Yeah, no, I haven't either. And I think, and I say that because I've tried doing this kind of concept with like Google Slides, and I definitely run across that concept where they fail to load. So if you're attempting to do this portfolio concept, I would definitely go with Google Sites, because like Ashley said, we've done this a few times, and even like our district websites that we've been creating with a lot of content, we haven't had any issues with it. But that's a good question. I would say that I've definitely had issues when it comes to like Google Slides with my, when I get slide happy and have like my 47 slides and all the content in it, but never any issues with Google Sites, which is another reason why we love it so much and we utilize it.
Debbie had asked, is there going to be examples from elementary school students as well? I think the examples that we have linked there are only middle school and high school. Did we have any elementaries, Tina?
I don't have any elementary. No, this is all secondary. So what I would do is, if you do elementary, please send them our way so I can see it. We are very much in the secondary world, but we can definitely, please email us, or if you want to contact us after, we can kind of go over and see what we can do as far as adapting it. Because I think it's definitely with our students too and our clientele, I think the elementary, we can definitely make something with it. Yeah. Okay, so we've seen kind of the quick and dirty as far as Google Sites. Like we said, it's totally up to you if you want to create that template, especially first time around. You might want to create that template just so you can troubleshoot with your students too. Totally up to you. Or you can have them create it based on a checklist. But we really, the whole concept too is to empower those students to kind of get them out of this like parking lot moment, you know, and get them on the road, get them empowered to kind of really embrace the education that they're being a part of. So this is kind of like my planning and preparation. Here are my suggestions based on the troubleshooting that I've done in the past couple of years doing this. The first thing I would suggest is to definitely have a template or a checklist. So if you know what or how you want it to be organized, or you have an idea, I would definitely create the template so you as a teacher can kind of go through it, so that when students then have the opportunity, you'll be able to kind of answer some of their questions. Or if you're feeling confident, like the students, you want the students to kind of just take a deep dive in it, you can definitely just like provide a checklist of what they want, of what you as a teacher want on the portfolio. Totally up to you. I would also suggest you as a teacher having like a student copy, so that yes, you have your template that you push out to students, but then you also have like a student copy version so you can interact with it as the students do, so they can see that, and it can be like an instructional tool, so you can go and show them how to upload or how to do things as you do them. Another huge tip that I would suggest is having video tutorials, which I realize we all love being on camera and doing this, but it's a huge lifesaver. I actually didn't start doing it until we went online, and I started video recording like Screencastify myself, showing them like how to upload something or how to save or how to maneuver through Google Sites, and just posting that in Google Classroom. And that was I've noticed like that was a really big tool, like a helpful tool for students, because they could pause, they could rewind, they could watch it again. So they knew exactly how to maneuver through Google Sites. So I would definitely suggest, as you progress throughout the school year and you add the different units or you add the different components with your students, to record it. And it'll also save your voice too, especially if you teach 5-6 classes. You can be like, okay, go to Google Classroom, watch the video, update your Google Notebook or your e-notebook or your portfolio. So just kind of keep it in mind. And then another component that, like I said, troubleshooting, we learned, is sharing that portfolio link or sharing that e-notebook link. So once you as a teacher have this template, and we'll talk about how you share that out, you then have to receive the student's link to their portfolio. So we'll talk a little bit about how to get that information, so you'll be able to access their portfolio. But definitely kind of thinking of a plan of how to do that. All right. So here's our I like to think is a pretty important side here. We'll go through everything. The first big question here is like, how do you share the template, right? So if you as a teacher made this template, we then have to push it out to students. So there is a video linked to it that we'll share with you, but I just kind of wanted to show you the quick and easy version here. It didn't always start out this way, so I thank Google for kind of simplifying it for us, because we definitely, a couple years ago, it wasn't this easy. But I'll kind of show you here on my screen. So this is my template, right? So I'll go to my homepage. So to share this out with students, what you are going to do, and we have the instructions at the, don't feel like you have to memorize it. We have the instructions there for you. But once you have your template, you are going to first, this is what we learned yesterday, you first want to make sure that your settings is that your draft, I'll change it here, that your draft is open to the public or open to your school district, because that's what students are going to be accessing, right? Because they're going to get the draft version. They're not just going to get the published version. They need to see the draft, because they're going to be editing the draft as their own. So once you edit that, make that draft anyone to edit, or for your district, they'll become the editors. Once you change that settings, here at the top in the URL, you're going to see the letter P here. So you are going to delete everything after the P. and then also the P, and you are going to type in template/preview. So once you, and like I said, we have a video for you, so you don't have to memorize it, but you'll delete the P, everything after the P, the letter P, and then you're going to type in template/preview. Once you press enter, it'll make essentially a copy, but this link, this URL link that you can post on your Google Classroom or share with your students, once they click on that, or once they go to that, they're going to click on use template, and that's going to make them their copy. So they're going to have exactly what you're created. It'll essentially duplicate it for them. So if you want to create your own as a teacher, you can, and then you just share out this URL, and students will click on use template, and they will get a copy of it that they can customize on their own. Okay. So that's step one. Step two here is to collecting the portfolio links, right? So you as a teacher, if you're sending out that template, they now have a copy, awesome. But you as a teacher need to also access it, because they've essentially just made a copy, but you want to make sure that you have it, and they'll need to share the link with you. And they only have to share it with you once, and you'll have it throughout the entire school year. So how you want to do that, completely up to you. What I've tried a couple different ways. The one for me that seems to be the most efficient is I've just created a Google form, and I just ask for their first name, last name, the grade level, or sorry, the period that I have them, and then they copy and paste their URL into this Google form, and then it creates a Google sheet for me, and it's all organized as far as by period too.
And
so
just to clarify, they're sharing the publish link so that the teacher can see the published version of their site, not the editable version of their site. So make sure they're sharing the publish link. And I'm popping into the chat right now a copy of Tina's Google form that she uses to collect her student links, so that you can have your own copy and use it if you would like to, or modify it to suit your needs.
Yeah, so Ashley brought up a good point as far as the published version, right? So I'm gonna just change the name real quick. So say for example, your students, they click on use template, now they have the template that you shared with them. So now they have to customize it, edit themselves, really make it their own, upload their documents. They do need to publish this document. They need to publish it, because yes, it'll save in their Google Sites in the drive, but they need to publish it. So for that, so even if they share the URL link, you as a teacher won't be able to access it unless they publish it. So we got to make sure that they press publish. They can always unpublish if they want, but they have to do that initial publish. So they can name their web address. You'll see at the bottom, it gives them what the beginning will look like, and then they can name it. I always tell them to label it their first name, last name, and then period. That's usually how I tell them to do it, just because it's easier on us too as teachers. But they do their first name, their last name, and the period. So totally up to you how you want them to do it. And then it asks, who can view my site? So we want to make sure you as a teacher sharing out, depending on, on your clientele and how you're wanting to do it, yours may be published site, yours as a teacher might be for the public. But for students, I would recommend just keeping it within your school district, just because you don't want, the outside public seeing it. Unless, of course, if you have the high school seniors or things like that that want to display that for applying for colleges, then they may want to change it to public, so that if it's a component that they're sharing with a third party and they want to see this impressive portfolio that they made, then you may want to change it to public. But for students in maybe the elementary or the secondary world, I would keep it within your school district so that you can see it, but it would kind of limit that.
The other option too is if they're doing a open house and want to share with parents, then you would need to make it public as well. And then the students could actually create QR codes with their links, and you could have those QR codes displayed in your classroom for parents to pull up their websites.
Oh, that's neat. I like the idea of her saying that.
Yeah.
So just make sure, just kind of be mindful of what it is, like your purpose is for that moment, or for later on, as far as what you want or who you want to see. But I would say just kind of be mindful of it. I typically keep it to the Hemet Unified or within my school district to see. So once you've published, I'll go ahead and press publish here. Now keep in mind, it's published, meaning that now me as a student, I can send this URL right here. It says copy publish site link. Students would copy this and post it on the Google form that you made. But I would just note is that they sent it to you, so you will always have it, right? You'll always have access to come and view their portfolio. Now, I would note that any additions that they made, they can see it, but you as a teacher would not see it unless they press publish. So we have you'll see on the slide deck too, publish means save. You'll see on the science example, she had it on every single slide, that publish means save, meaning that any addition that you make to this, so say for example, I'm gonna title this assignment to sensory writing. So it saves automatically me as a student working on it, but you as a teacher aren't going to see the edits I make unless I press publish. So I'll press publish and it'll even give me what's currently published. So what the teacher can see right now, and then what my version looks like. So the students can always see like, oh, the changes were made, but they have to press publish. So if I'm like, you're missing a title, and they're like, no, I have a title. Like, did you press publish? Publish means save. So just kind of keep repeating that mantra to students, that publish means save. The other comment I would make is once they send you that link and you're taking a look at it, is the settings of whatever documents that they're uploading. So there might be a couple of documents. I purposely put a couple in the examples in the slide deck that will get you. You might see it says request access. So if a student is creating a document and then uploads it, but didn't change the settings on Google Docs or Google Sites, then it'll say request access. So you want to make sure that the settings both on your website and any documents that you're uploading have access to it. If any of the assignments that you're asking them to post on your portfolio is from Google Classroom, then the settings are already done for you. You wouldn't have a problem with it, which makes life a little bit easier. So any assignments that you like assign on Google Classroom, they do the assignment, they submit it, and then now you're asking them to upload it here. The settings will already be adjusted for you since you assigned it. So that's a good one for you. But if students are kind of just creating like on their own a Google site or a Google Doc and then upload it, they would have to just double check that the settings are updated so that you as a teacher can view it.
Yeah, and just in case you're listening to Tina and not reading through the chat, there's been some questions about like the template process. So when you create your own template and then you share it with students and they click that use template button, they now have their own copy that is editable to them. They will not be able to edit your template that you're the owner of. And if you make any changes to your original template after they've already clicked use template, those changes are not going to go live for them. So this is why if you're going to use the template option instead of allowing them to create from scratch, you got to put a lot of forethought into it in the beginning. So this is really in thinking through your entire year, backwards mapping your unit and your units and things. Don't get too nitty gritty with the details because we know things change and we're constantly having to be flexible in our roles as teachers. So I would create your template as a kind of basic shell and then let them fill in and get better at adding and graphic designing and all of that stuff throughout the year as they're working on displaying their learning.
Yeah, you bring up a good point because like in my first year, I think I put like all the 6 units and we didn't get through 6 units. So then we had to kind of adapt, like, what are we going to make that last page? So you bring up a good point too. Like you want to be as organized as possible, but also know and allow for flexibility, which is kind of that takes me through the last component here where it says updating throughout the year. So this link is just an example of what a video that I made for my students as far as like to update them. So I didn't have to say it 6 times in my classrooms as far as how to do it and go through that process. So this is a video I made. I posted on Google Classroom. They watched it, paused, rewind, and just made sure that they did they made theirs look like mine. So I had like my student copy or my version that I updated, and then they're going to do that to theirs. I also, because Ashley brought up too, like that's a reality, is that like my unit 6 did not happen. So we had to adjust, we made it different. And so I had a video of how we changed that page to adapt to what our school year was. So any changes that you do make, you can always make a video of it, or how you want them to upload or what you want them to complete. You can always make a quick little video on like Screencastify, Google Meet, and put it on Google Classroom for them to watch. And then that way they can kind of maneuver through their copy or their portfolio to make theirs look like yours. So the video is a huge time saver, and you don't even have to be on camera when you make the video. They're really looking for that, showing that display, which is really helpful for, you know, for all learners too, that they have that opportunity that maybe we go too fast when we're showing them in the classroom.
And as a side note on Screencastify is your friend. And you do not have to show your face on camera. If you are not comfortable with that, you can just talk on camera and show the screen, but make your life easier. If you're going to be going over sort of like procedural instructions, like things like this, like how to do a certain page on a site, or if you're going to be repeating the same concept 6 times in every single class period, save yourself that time and create a video of that ahead of time. And that way it frees you up during the instructional period to do other things, provide feedback, make connections with kids, circulate, help, you know, instead of being stuck at the front and giving the same lecture that you've already given 5 times. So video is your friend. Use Screencastify. That's my tech tip for the day.
I love it. And you know what, honestly, it wouldn't even dawned on me if we didn't have that virtual time where I was doing, you know, we created these e-notebooks virtually, and it was that moment. I'm like, I'm saying the same thing. I'm showing them the same thing over and over again. Like the video, it's your friend. Like watch the video and do what the video says. They go through it, and you get pretty good at like those, you know, 2-minute videos for them to kind of upload and customize their own. So yes, the videoing is your friend, honestly. But I think a huge part, honestly, is publish means save. You as making the template, don't forget publish means save, and for your students, and always check your share settings. So when you are sharing the template, we want to make sure that they have the draft version available to them, but it will make a copy, like Ashley said. So they're not going to be able to touch your template, but it will make a copy for them. And then we always want to make sure that they change their settings as well so that you can access it once they put it in that portfolio Google form for you. Okay, so let's do this. I'll have, we'll give you some time to take the wheel. I love our theme here. We'll take you the wheel to kind of look through it. I'll have Ashley throw in the Google Sites website. So if you want to start from scratch, she'll also throw in a template sample. So this is my template that I've made. So if you want to start with my template, just because it's already kind of organized for you, you're welcome to. So you can click on that template and kind of customize it and make it your own, or feel free to start from scratch on Google Sites and kind of explore. But we'll give you a few minutes to explore. And while you're doing that, please throw in questions, tips, tricks in the chat that we can kind of share out along the way.
Yes, I also popped in all of the previous examples in case you want to look back at those again to get ideas for how to set up your portfolio template.
Awesome. And then just a note too, the science ones, if you're not from Hemet Unified, it probably won't access to you. And that's just the science department wanted it that way. So I can show them up on the screen if anyone wants to see the display of the science again, but they kept it pretty tight knit for theirs.
So the why behind doing student portfolios, Tina, if you want to pop back over to slide 3. So again, this is a collection of student learning assembled and managed by the student over the course of the year. So they're showing what they've learned, sometimes the process of how they've gone about learning. You can add reflections of learning too within the site. And it's really great for, again, those seniors who may want to share these links to their portfolios of all this, evidence of what they can do throughout the year. And then not to mention, this is like helping to develop some of their digital skills. They're learning graphic design. They're playing around with some basics of website development, website design. So again, those 21st century skills that they're going to be needing as they go out from us one day. So, I mean, there's so many different benefits to doing student portfolios and e-notebooks. If Tina, if you want to add to that, or if anybody else has a why behind why they do digital portfolios or e-portfolios, e-notebooks.
Yeah, I think another component too is like I have that the revisiting piece or that reflection piece. So every document that they upload, so say for Unit 1, they uploaded a sensory details document that we worked on in class. There's also an opportunity for you as a teacher to add in questions on the portfolio so they can revisit, like remind us again, like what is your definition of sensory details? Give us some examples. How did it go during this lesson? So it's really kind of this like metacognition opportunity as well, as to like think about your learning, like what went well, what do we want to do, what did we get from it. So it's also kind of a reflection piece as well. It kind of depends how far you want to go with it, but it's not only that digital piece, which I think is huge, and really it kind of tests their skills too, especially for our clientele, where our students, they kind of went through the online and the virtual learning. They can handle this, they can do this and really customize it to make it their own, but really adding in kind of a piece for them to even revisit what they're posting, to really kind of show off their learning, that it did stick, they're on the right path here. And I also have like the different, like I'll put in like a cover sheet for them or their study guide, so they can use even their portfolio of their unit as like a study guide for their assessment tasks or any kind of exams that are coming from their class. So it's really a tool, and depending how much information you put on it, like I put some resources like how to create questions, how to write a reflection, doing the textual evidence, so they can really use that as a resource for them throughout the school year.
So Don and Josue popped in some YouTube videos that go along with our theme.
Yeah.
We had what did you have, Sweet Home Alabama at first, and then she deleted it because we didn't really like the music the first time we did the session. Like
it was stressful, it stressed us out.
It was stressing her out. But he put in Incubus's Drive and then Jesus Take the Wheel.
I love it.
Great. Love it. Yeah, some of us are going to need Jesus Take the Wheel when we're trying to do these with the students. Just know there's going to be a little bit of like that, cognitive frustration, both on your part and the student part at the very beginning. But honestly, these kids, they pick up things so fast, and you're going to learn things from them. And that's cool. Like, I don't know. When a kid can teach me something that I didn't know, I think that's cool. So
and the kids love it too. Yeah. They want to share. They're like, look, I figured it out. Like, it's okay. It's okay to not know it all.
Like technology is vast. It's impossible for us to know everything there is about everything. So just be open to that. Like, hey, that's cool that you taught me something new today. Just roll with it. Yes, Tracy, it's a great tool. She said high schoolers provide evidence of learning via portfolio at the end of each semester.
Okay.
Yeah. Another way that you can have them reflect on learning is to insert a video of themselves, like verbally reflecting on their learning from the semester or from a unit, and have them insert the video into their site. It doesn't always necessarily have to be in writing or via a project. Great way for them to get used to being on camera too. I'm sure a lot of them are a lot more comfortable with it in this TikTok age than we are in our generation, but yeah, and they're much faster. It's more intuitive for them. Yeah, they're digital natives for sure. Would you use one site for multiple subjects if you were overseeing several subjects? What do you think, Tina?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think if you is like, I think it's all just about like how it's organized. So if you as a teacher are doing English and social studies, I don't see why not, because even in the pages, you can have like sub pages.
Subpages. Yeah.
Yeah, within it. So that could be organized that way. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I just came back from the AVID conference, and in the digital teaching and learning strand, they were talking about using Google Sites to create AVID binders. And so in the AVID class, they have pages in their Google Sites binders for every class they take. And in that class, they have sub pages for different units and artifacts and things that they're producing in all of their subject areas. So you could call it an e-binder. It doesn't necessarily have to be called an e-portfolio or e-notebook. I mean, there's lots of different names for this.
No, I like that. Even like, because someone was asking about like the elementary world, like you could definitely do it with the elementary. I'd be so fascinated to see that. So someone do it and share it with us, because I'd be so fascinated to see like all the different content areas under one portfolio.
I did find a random elementary example when I just Googled, and it was a cute little blonde girl, and she had her like math and writing and subjects like at the top of her pages, but I didn't really get to click through to dig into that because it was just on the fly. But I'm sure there are some examples of elementary school out there. We just have to do some digging.
Okay, it can be done. I love it.
It can be done, yeah. And your fourth and fifth graders, they can do a Google site. I mean, if they can operate Google Slides and Google Docs and they're familiar with the Google buttons, then Google Sites is going to be intuitive for them as well.
Yeah. And they like it. And like you said, like the student, I feel like we as adults might be a little bit more like apprehensive to like press buttons and things and to like see what it does. Like kids, they'll press, they'll click on things, like they know where the undo button is, like they'll click, it's fine. Like they're very, no fear when it comes to new things. So I'm sure it'll be great.
Yeah. Control Z is your undo, your shortcut for your undo. I use it every single day of my life. Control Z. If you mess up something, just hit Control Z. It makes it go back.
I love it. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Anything we can answer?
Ooh, Control plus Y equals redo.
I like that.
One,
okay.
Thank you, Josue.
Okay. I'm writing it down. That's good.
Control Y. Yes. I know. I love it. I always come to these sessions, even presenting or attending, and I learn something new, even if it's just a little nugget, like Control Y. Did not know that one. Hadn't memorized that one for sure. Yes, we are going to give you the link to the slides. I know many of you have been asking for that. Okay, I'm going to pop it into the chat right now.
Yeah, throw it in there. And like our contact is in there. If you have any questions, as you start off your school year or throughout the school year, like send us an email, like any kind of troubleshooting. It's always helpful to have someone in your department or in your site who's going along with the process with you. So those examples we shared on, what was it, like slide 3 or 4? Those different examples are from the school that I worked at, and it was, so I did the English, we had another teacher doing the history, another teacher doing science. So we all collaborated, even though we were across content, like we all wanted to make sure that we were organized because we were sharing students, like the students were coming from our class to their class. So it's, whether it's, just another teacher or someone in your department, it is really helpful to have someone else kind of going through it with you to troubleshoot with you. And we're here for it too. So Ashley and I can troubleshoot with you too if you have someone, but collaboration is definitely key. Staying organized is key, and just not working in isolation. And that might even mean like working with the students. Let the students know, like, hey, I'm having trouble with this. How do you do this? Like kids will definitely want to show, right? They want to show off their skills, and they to either show you or show their neighbor like how to get through different things. So kind of encouraging that collaboration, not only with you as teachers, but for the students as well.
Yeah, and speaking of collaboration, I'm going to do a little plug for IAQ. So if you are not part of the Inland Area Q, you need to come join us. There's a flyer in the chat, and at the end of the presentation, it's free membership. It's just the Inland Area affiliate of the Q organization. And what we do is we have grant opportunities, and there's conference opportunities and meetups and events, and it just gets you connected with other educators in the area who are using ed tech and using it in effective ways in their classrooms or in their coaching roles like Tina and I So join IAQ. We'd love to have you be a part of our organization.
Absolutely. And so with that, we just wanted to say thank you. If you have any questions along the way as you start off your school year or throughout the school year, please send us an email. We're here for you. We'll look through everything. We can kind of troubleshoot with you. But just thank you. Thank you for joining us as the Google Camp comes to a close. We thank you for sticking with us. And if you have any questions, please let us know. But thank you. Enjoy the rest of your summer and the start of your school year.
And don't forget to hop back on the sched and give us some feedback on the session. We'd love to know what you thought.
Yes, please.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Tina
everyone.
and Ashley, for everything and for your expertise. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we hope to see you next year.